people say sometimes these are cliches, but these are like deep rooted in me just to help me with my mindset of like, okay, it's all good because that is life. Seeing other people's stories that you can relate to can help you give that one glimpse or glamour of like breaking through. Sometimes people that are close, opinions do matter, but how far are you gonna let that go to affect you? It's gonna limit you. It's not limiting them. You need to learn who you are. In finding yourself is you do need to spend time with yourself because you need to know who you are. Like what ticks, right?
When you're a salesperson, do you want to really focus and hone in on your ability to sell and your ability to influence people?
Be proactive and do more than your job responsibility says, man. This is something that I innately believe in. Like just don't just do your scope of work.
To young Faizal,
yes,
on how you could have done your job better at the beginning of your career at Cisco, what would you tell him?
All right, crew, get ready for some serious inspiration today. Our guest is someone who's not only crushed it in the world of sales and marketing, but brings an incredible story of discipline, drive, and next level resilience. Meet Faizal Hamdoon, an accomplished sales and marketing professional with over a decade of experience driving growth, crafting smart strategies, and delivering results that don't just meet expectations, they shatter them. But Faizal's story goes way beyond the boardroom. He's a former Eagle Scout and U.S. National Paralympic athlete, a background that shaped his competitive mindset, unshakable discipline, and passion for pushing boundaries on and off the field. Throughout his career, Faizal has built a reputation for his sharp business acumen, creativity under pressure, and ability to lead from the front. Whether it's tailoring solutions for clients, launching impactful campaigns, or expanding portfolios and brand presence, he brings a relentless energy and a knack for solving complex challenges with strategic finesse. He's the kind of leader who thrives in high-stakes environments, someone who doesn't wait for opportunities, but creates them. Fueled by an entrepreneurial spirit and a deep commitment to excellence, Faizal is on a mission to leave every organization he touches better than he found it. So buckle up. We're diving into mindset, growth, resilience, and what it really takes to win in business and in life. Welcome to KO's Launchpad, Faizal Hamdoon.
I also have a note full of my favorite quotes, but I share it with my friends who I think are like the smartest.
Yeah.
It's called Mindset of Champions.
Ooh.
And
bro, Cole, I cannot wait to get to know you, bro. I feel like you are an amazing soul, bro. This is the shit I like, man. This is motivating. I'm big on it. So sharing something before we jump. Two of my best friends that were living outside of the United States, they moved back to the States. We started this called Brothers Legacy. Just for men, bro. It started off 4 years ago with just a couple of guys that we had friends. And then we were like, yo, let's make this bigger than us. Because it was just for us to have, like, hang out. Because we're Muslim. After Ramadan, there was Eid. So we were like, yo, let's just get together. And then my two friends were like, yo, let's get younger guys together. Let's make this a thing. So now we're doing classes.
Yeah?
We have 501(c). Like, we're doing shit, bro. So right now, as you can, real quick, we just posted this.
Yeah.
To help Project Here, we're trying to raise $150,000, bro. Prior to that, we raised $15,000 to build a school in Gambia, bro. Like, we're just doing random stuff, man.
Wait, well, hold on. I thought this was going to be like a small opportunity. This is a big op you got going on here.
Bro, we're like trying to make this big. The crew became this big, man. Like, over the years, you see little people coming. It's just guys.
Yeah.
For men to just be amongst men, iron sharpens iron, bro. That's what we're all about.
I love that. I love that.
You know?
Is this public, or do you want to keep this as like?
No, we're trying to, open it up, but it's like right now it's just for the crew. But yeah, we just like, you hear some of the projects that we worked on. 2022 raised this much for two brothers that died. $1,600 for 2 wells in Gambia. Almost $14,000 to build a school, and then stuff like that.
Dude, that's huge. Yeah, that's absolutely huge.
So it's things like that, man. That's what I'm big on, bro. Like just helping. Yeah, I'm all about helping, man.
I love that, man. I could tell. So you weren't always this person, right? Like, I'm a big believer that everybody is a collection of habits, but these habits form either out of desire or they're formed out of necessity through like being forged through the pain and fire of whatever adversity we all come through.
I like having a rigid routine, especially in working out. I try to hit minimum 5 days a week.
Minimum?
Minimum.
Excellent minimum.
Okay.
Yeah. Do you do like push-pull legs, rest?
So right now I'm huge on calisthenics, always been huge on calisthenics. Got diagnosed with long-term COVID, or long COVID as they say. The reason is, man, I train hard. That's just my mindset. Like, if I'm not crawling out of the gym, KO, I didn't hit it hard enough. I have a very bad habit that a lot of my close friends and mostly family point out is like, either I'm 100 or I'm not. They're like, find that, consistency is absolutely key, right? But when you go so hard, you only can get so much consistency because your body can't recoup and recover. Right? And it goes back to training track. Like, you cannot hit the 100-meter at 100%. You're going to hit that 90%, then you're going to start gradually decreasing, but you got to have form to keep it going, right? So that's how I've always looked at it. So I'm finding myself again. And so going about falling off when I got long-term COVID, or long COVID, as they say, because my respiratory just hit the fan, bro. I was wheezing, just doing simple lifts. I'm like gasping for breath. And I love to run, and I couldn't even run, like more than a couple 100 meters. And I'm just like, and so that mentally got me, KO. Mentally, I'm like, yo, again, another setback. And I was just on a stride, man. I was just hitting
a core part of your identity.
Yeah,
doing this kind of
exactly, right? And so that got me, and so I was falling off, trying to get back on. It was just like, I always recall to my famous guy, the boxer, who is Stallone. Tell me, the movie.
Rocky?
Rocky. It's not how hard you get hit, it's how hard you get hit and get stabbed. So I'm just like, all right, Faizal, you got hit again, let's go.
Yeah, you're better than that.
Exactly, man. So, people say sometimes these are cliches, but these are like deep rooted in me, just to help me with my mindset of like, okay, it's all good. This is life. There's ebbs and flows, as you saw. Love that tattoo of yours, man, because that is life, So.
I appreciate that. I think cliches have a role in society, and it's like the distillation of knowledge. It's the same thing with really popular quotes. There's a reason why it's popular, because it conveys a message, and it's a message that sticks. And the entire intention of telling anybody anything is to convey an idea that gets them to act on it. So we love cliches, just not overused ones.
Exactly.
Appreciate you. So, like, this incredible physique that you have right now, this is an aggregation of years and years of really hard work. Very similar to you. I love to train myself really, really hard.
Yes.
When I was going for the 1K club, I would deadlift so hard that the next day I feel like I couldn't use my brain properly. When you burn your CNS, your central nervous system,
exactly.
You wake up,
is done, bro.
I'm gone. I remember I had a one-on-one.
The true word of cooked.
Actually,
right?
I remember I had a one-on-one with Chris Trapani at that moment, who was my leader's leader at that point, and I was explaining to him what having your CNS was like. Because when I was talking to him, my eyes were going crossed.
Oh, wow.
It was kind of embarrassing, but I can totally agree with you. Also, when I got COVID for the first time, I had long COVID, and it's scary.
It is.
You're like, this isn't who I am, and you're just stuck for months.
Yes.
Feeling I can't put basic arithmetic together. So for you, eventually I'd love to unpack when you do get hit, how do you get back up?
Yeah.
But I'm sure as we convey the story of your life, which is a very incredible storied life,
thank you,
we're going to learn a lot.
Thank you.
So let's take us back to some humble beginnings, right? Like, tell me what it was like coming up in Sri Lanka.
Amazing. Well, I only spent a short stint there. I left Sri Lanka in 98. So I was born regular child, running around, rambunctious. I had a blessing of a lifestyle down there. Father, mother, I had a good career. So, just enjoyed Sri Lanka at that point. And then obviously with growth, they started noticing this deformity in my leg, where it was shorter than my left leg by 2 inches. And I started, limping. And then you started seeing my foot being a little bit malformed. And so what happened was, I just continued life. I enjoyed it. It didn't stop me. And just trying to give you a quick synopsis how, fast forwarding how I got here, because again, the stint was very short, right? 7 years there. My mom was a lawyer at that time, and she was getting an award in Canada. And that's where everything sparked, because there was a particular gentleman and his wife that was a former senator of North Carolina, John Jordan, who saw me running around but limping. And so they're like, hey, who's this little cute kid that's limping and what's going on? And so that sparked a conversation with my parents. And then next thing I know is I'm here. So to give you the rundown, I just remember playing around with kids and having fun while I was limping, but that was it.
Did you feel like you started getting treated a little bit different?
Oh, absolutely, man. I mean, I wouldn't say in Sri Lanka as much because I don't recall that. I think I was still quote unquote normal. I just had a small limp and I was still playing cricket. I would still be outside. I remember something so vividly, KO, was like getting sticks and creating swords, man, and just trying to, play with your friends, man. It's so wild, right?
Yeah.
But moreover, feeling bullied to a level, KO, I have some stories. I mean, I'm happy to share with you, but the point that I was crying and didn't want to go back to school happened here when I was growing up, because that's when I had more of a limp. And I had a shoe, when back in the day, Spice Girls, they had those platform shoes. I had one of those, right? Obviously, young kids see that, they're like, hey, who's this, this guy with this limping with the shoe?
I was a lot younger, actually. Filipino diets aren't necessarily the most healthy. There's a lot of
Carbs,
sweet.
a lot of carbs.
Yeah. A lot of carbs, a lot of fats, a lot of sweets, a lot of salty.
Yeah.
I didn't have the healthiest eating habits because I was playing a lot of video games, way too much video games. Because it was like a form of escape. At the time, I was in a 2-bedroom apartment with up to 15 people in it at a time. And the only way for me to like leave that environment was just to escape through the game.
Yeah.
So I would do as much as I possibly could to play that game.
What game is this, if I may ask?
So I played a couple games. They were MMOs, or like massive multiplayer online RPG. So I was playing way too much MapleStory, way too much RuneScape, and I got really good at typing fast. Like, I'm not gonna lie, there was a benefit to that.
Oh, you are a real gamer. You on the computer. You on the computer, man.
Yeah, eventually I got onto like the Call of Duties.
Okay.
That sort.
But nah, you were really on that keyboard.
I was going crazy on that.
Nice.
It was my escape, and I was making friends.
Exactly. I get it, man. I get it.
So at the time, I had all these unhealthy like eating habits, and I was overweight. So I was overweight, socially anxious. I could not dream that I was having a conversation with you like this. I absolutely could not. And my escape was in the game where like I could be anybody
on it. You were an avatar.
Yeah, exactly. So in my real life, I probably wasn't the proudest of who I was, but I think that stuff is all just formative to your identity. You got to start somewhere. You got to undergo a little bit of pain. So that way you can look up at the stars and chase after that goal that you have.
Man.
So
you can't let that confine you, right? And sometimes people get stuck getting confined in that. And it's hard to, you know, as humans, it is hard to like break through that. But hopefully stories like this, seeing other people's stories that you can relate to, can help you give that one glimpse or glamour of like breaking through. So.
Absolutely. It's not about how you start. It's about
finish, brother. Absolutely.
So I hear you when you say that you were being teased. I remember getting teased. I was too fat. I wasn't fit enough to be able to do the things that my classmates could do. I wasn't good at basketball. All my Filipino homies were good at playing basketball. But I could sing. I guess I could see how that could work out for me a little bit later on.
American Idol.
Who knows? So
it's called The Voice now. Apparently, The Voice is way better than American Idol.
Maybe a nice casual karaoke session. Cool. So for you, Faizal, what was it like undergoing such a tough experience like that at such a young age? Was that something that stuck with you for a long time?
Yeah, man, absolutely, absolutely. Sometimes, you know, I ponder upon it even at this age, KO, like my escape is driving. You know, I get in a car by myself and sometimes music, sometimes not, man. And just let those thoughts run and see where I've come and how else I can continue. And hopefully my stories can help other kids, especially I think in this day and age, KO, cyberbullying is huge, you know. So I've come across some young adolescents that have gone through it. So talking about that, it's definitely an impact where I sometimes reflect. And I've come to a point, man, I've forgiven people that have been quote unquote mean to me or really picked on me, because there was this one particular kid, to the point I don't even recall his name, but I remember his face so vividly. Like he was going in on me so much, KO. I came home. I was like probably 11 years old. I told my mom, I was like, I'm never going back to school. I'm never going back. And obviously as a parent, well, you know, they're like in disarray, they're like running back to school, like what's going on? But I've forgiven, man. I've forgiven and forgotten, and, you know, just taking those strides to help people that I've seen that are in those situations now. So
yeah, it's like, I think there's this proverb where like holding on to pain is like holding on to a grenade.
Yes.
And hoping that it hurts the other person or something along those lines. I probably butchered that entirely.
I'm big at butchering stuff too. I'm very bad. But I'm like, you get the point?
No, you're feeling
if I can add to that, right? I actually saw a short very recently. I forget the gentleman's name again. I might butcher it, but like the encompassing point that I got from him, he was like, you know, it was like a TED Talk, right? It was a quick short of a TED Talk. The guy was like, picked up like 5 pounds and he's carrying. He picked up 10 points, he's carrying. So he kept picking up this weight. And he's like, this is what you're holding on to everybody's thoughts and stuff on you. He's like, all you gotta do is just drop the weight. He's like, oh, look, you're so much lighter. I'm like, damn, that is so true though. Hold on to other people's things. And sometimes people that are close, opinions do matter. But how far are you gonna let that go to affect you? You know, like how far is that gonna, because again, it's gonna limit you. It's not limiting them.
Yeah.
You know, so.
Yeah, kids can be evil, man. It sounds like you've had a huge journey of maturity after having gone through a lot of adversity as a child. So I'm sure that adversity still continues after you immigrate to the States. From then on, what does your journey look like?
Yeah, so giving you a short story, as comprised as I can be. Came here in 98, 2 prongs, right? We had my parents trying to sustain us as the first immigrants here in America to give me a livelihood. And then we have mine, where I had to undergo 14 surgeries, 2 amputations, right? From the age 8 to 18, I had 14 surgeries, 2 amputations. One was a failed below the leg amputation at the age of 15. And that was failed, as I mentioned. So we went to go get a second opinion at Duke University. The first one was at UNC Chapel Hill. Then I had to go undergo a couple more surgeries and through the knee amputation. So just focusing on that track, right, of just me, and then I'll try to encompass a little bit of what my family was going through, it was hard, man, because imagine adolescence, 7, 8 years old, going through this surgery, had crutches. Okay, I had crutches. I remember again vividly on these points, was at 15, lost my leg, went to high school with crutches, my mom and dad beside me, taking me to the principal's office to get me situated and all that. And I hear whispers in the background, isn't that Faizal? Didn't Faizal have a leg last year? You know, and just stuck throughout, man. But I had a good support system. I had friends. I had a lot of guys that riled me up. They would throw me down. They would beat on me in a good way, right? Not in a malicious way, but in a good way, just to toughen me up.
I see.
Yeah, so just to clarify that, but I had a good circle of friends. I had a good mom and dad that really tried to instill me, anything is possible.
Despite the circumstance physically, like how important do you feel it was to have that support system instill the right mindset in you?
Absolutely important, man. And I'm glad that I also got into sports because they say like sports helps with self-esteem, and self-confidence. And, I was a swimmer. I swam all my life. Even prior to losing my leg, I was a swimmer. When I lost my leg, I will tell you, I thought life was over, man. I mean, I looked down, 15. I'm starting to like girls too. And I'm just like, what's going on? I remember this one guy, good friend of mine, he came from up north, so he was a wrestler. He's like, yo, you should wrestle. And I looked at him, I was like, dude, what are you talking about? I can't do anything anymore. And then he just showed me a guy with no arms and no legs wrestling state championship. And I said, if he could do it, I could do it. And that's always been my saying, KO. It's like, if you could do it, I can do it, but with a little asterisk. It'll be non-conventional for a normal person or with a two-legged person on how to do it, right? I mentioned to you, I just came back from Hawaii, first time there, and I'm a big hiker, man. And, I can show you some pictures, but I went on a mountain that was like, honestly, this off an incline, okay? For the camera, this off much of an incline. And it was hard. Because the way I have to navigate is different. But I got up there. It didn't stop me, man. I got up there, right? And I told my friend, who's my best friend, I said, bro, I'm going to get up there. You don't need to help me. If I need help, I'll ask you. And that was something that I'm a former Eagle Scout as well, so I did a lot of camping and stuff like that. When people see me, they don't think I'm an Eagle Scout for some reason. I don't know why. I guess I don't fit the mold. But they quickly realized, KO, that, they would always want to help. Hey, Faizal, you need help going up. And then they realized, like, Faizal is going to keep going regardless of us. And we can't ask him if he needs help. He will ask for help. So that's how it's just always been, man.
Man. But you've always had this level of like grit and resilience.
It might have been crafted. I just think I was just throwing so many obstacles that, with friends and family, I think that's, you have a support system. I really do think you need to have a support system. I would never take the credit. It's the grace of God and the community that was around me. As we spoke off camera, it takes a village. And I truly believe that because there was a whole village rallying around me, my family, my friends at that time, that wouldn't let me just succumb to one-legged guy.
Inspirational. Like I can't help but feel fired up right now.
Thank you, brother.
Like there's no reason for anybody to make any excuse about anything right now.
I appreciate it.
Okay, so walk me through your journey through adolescence, from high school all the way to college. At some point, you ended up becoming a competitive athlete. And the 6th ranked Paralympic track runner in the world. Bro, that's wild.
Cool. Yeah, I'm blessed to say I was. So I was a swimmer, lost my leg at 15, wrestled for a little bit. And then my mom was straight up KO. She's like, I don't want you having those funky years, You know what I'm talking about?
The cauliflower years.
I'm like, Mom, what are you talking about? You know how our Asian parents is like, I don't want you doing that. And I was like, all right. But I did it for a little bit. I did enjoy it, man. It was amazing. It was thrilling. Then I was going through more surgeries. And then finally, my last amputation. And I would like to add here, KO, it was the same time my dad was battling cancer. So I was at Duke undergoing my last potential surgery while my dad was at Rex battling cancer. So that was a huge moment of my life too, because, my father was my best friend. Soon after I did lose him, but my life had to continue. That was something my mom always said. She's like, we're making you go through the surgery because at the end of the day, you'll have your own life, Faizal. We love to have a father, no doubt, but I had to continue, right? Because I had a journey ahead of me. So started running track, man. I to this day, I say this, I felt like Forrest Gump. Like I got a leg finally because I had crutches from 8 to 18. I did everything with crutches. I was a Boy Scout. I swam. I played sports, everything with crutches. I climbed mountains with crutches. Crutches was the thing, right? And so much so I had black rubbing in my armpits because of so much of use of crutches.
Right.
So after that, got into track. And I wasn't a distance guy, KO. You know, people running like miles and miles. I'm like, man, I was a sprinter for swimming too. So I was like, I like sprinting better. I like to just go hard and I'm done, right?
Yeah.
And so I reached out to my high school coach, and they were like, listen, because I did not know anything about track. KO. All I knew in track was 4 rounds around the lap was a mile. I didn't know any of those little marks and asterisks. I was like, what is this stuff, man? It's confusing.
Yeah.
And so they hooked me up with my coach, TJ Walker, who was the assistant coach at that time, but now the head coach at North Carolina Central University, where I ultimately went, because he's like, hey, you know, I got into state and all that. He's like, you can go anywhere you want, but if you're trying to get into the Paralympics, we need to train. So I said, okay. I went to Central, which is the best decision I ever made. Loved that school, great alma mater. Classes, train. And then I actually worked because I was also the head of the household. You know, my father passed away. My mom was trying to figure out what was next steps. And so to help contribute to the house, I was working. Yeah, man, my schedule was packed. Train, school, train, work every day.
I'm inspired, man. I am inspired.
You know?
I'm fired up right now.
Let's go, bro.
This is awesome. This is so awesome. Okay, so you hit stride quite literally, like, in college.
Yeah, I would say so.
And you had never known how to even put down track spikes.
No.
And you go from that to 6th ranked Paralympic like runner in the world.
Yeah.
In how much time?
I would say in 4 years. It was all, again, that community, that village. I would say my coach, TJ Walker, man, he helped me out. A lot of people with above the knee, by the way, I'm above the knee amputee, which takes the component, I would say, a little bit higher, because if you have the knee, you cannot replace it.
So there's no flexion of the leg.
Yeah, nothing, right? I have a dough hinge of a leg of my prosthetic. Like, you just swing it. He made me understand, like, listen, you're gonna run as normal as you can, step over step, because a lot of above knees run with a circumvent because they're scared that either the knee's gonna buckle or anything like that. But he trained me, again, that comes down to the mind. I fell so many times in my face, get up. So you're going to eventually learn how to run like this. He's like, I'm not going to allow you to run with a circumventing, right, way of doing it. So,
man, that is huge. That is huge. What would you say are some of the biggest components of effective coaching?
Understanding your student, right? Understanding that particular athlete. I was blessed that he had a psychology background. So to me, I think I thrive in kind of challenging me and putting me down, like, oh, you're not going to do that. And I'm like, nah, I got to do that. Where over the years, and I'll use my younger brother, I would try to use that same tactic, and my brother's like, nah, I can't have, like, he wasn't taking that. And so I had to learn that people also have different ways of being activated, right? And going to effective coaching that's what I would say, was learning who that particular person is, and bringing that even to the business sense, KO. It's like, I want to know who my audience is, who am I talking to, so I can give you the best way of narrating the story.
Sure. To eventually finding an interest in technology.
Like I said, I was working, right? I was track, school, work. I was working part-time at a clothing store. That's another reason why you notice I love suits. So I did that.
Got the drip, man.
And I appreciate it. And I was blessed, man. I was exposed to a lot of different clientele. And this one particular gentleman, shout out to Rolf, he owned a hotel REIT, essentially. He had about 100 hotels under his portfolio.
Gotcha.
And he just liked who I was and how I delivered my service to him, because he was a hard seller. I mean, he was a hard customer. He's like, listen, I don't buy stuff, especially for me, right? And I was blessed. I saw him 2 suits, and not just that. I saw him 2 shirts, 2 pairs of shoes. I saw him 2 ties. So I gave him the whole gamut. And he's like, you just robbed me, but I like it. He's like, I like it. So he's like, hey, I want to meet you, outside of work and see where you're at in life. And I was blessed. And that was why I'm big on mentorship, because he found out my story. He's like, listen, finish school, you got a job. So that's where my first big boy job was, working for him. And I was based in because he had like 100 hotels. So I was living out in San Jose for a while, and just, put me all over, because he also knew at that point of my life, man, I just been at home and taking care of family. So he's like, you need to learn who you are. And that's another thing I would add in finding yourself is you do need to spend time with yourself because you need to know who you are. Like what ticks, right? I was so uncomfortable, KO, especially like the biggest thing was my first big job was in San Jose. So I'm in this new area. Even though I've visited, I've never lived there by myself. I have to go get food. I would have to go to the movies. I would have to go with stuff by myself.
Got your own laundry.
Exactly. I'm like, you know what? Who's Faizal? I had to start understanding who Faizal was. And so that was a huge change in my life at that point. So it continues down the storyline, worked for him for some years. Then a company.
Let me interrupt you. What were some of your biggest lessons that you learned from having had that experience besides finding yourself?
Man, I had a lot, man, because he threw me to the on the deep end. He really did. And it was, again, sales, right? I was always in sales, selling the clothing, got into work with him in the sales side of things of the hotel business, finding clients, finding RFPs. Like I would have to go create RFPs in a way, right? So one example was Allstate in Glenview, Illinois. They were right next to the hotel he owned. He's like, I want all the CEOs and all the big people staying at my hotel. Go get that done. And so a challenge was, how do I get it done? How do I formulate and figure it out, right? I have stories for you, KO. Like I would have to bypass the security guards and making up stories like, hey, I need to see the procurement person, going online, doing investigation. And again, that goes down to doing your homework, right? Trying to find out like how to deliver the best service or product is doing your homework.
So you had a component of social engineering, which is actually a part of cybersecurity. So it makes sense how you eventually find your way to cybersecurity.
Exactly.
So what were you doing the social engineering for? You were bypassing security by letting them know you had to meet a certain individual?
Exactly.
Man, okay. Security practitioner.
Yeah, man. Great point on social engineering, because that is true. And that's something that we speak highly on, like, you know, trying to help these bad guys, because that's what they do. They go do their homework on who they're trying to breach, right? So adding to that, man, after leaving him, I got hired by a quote unquote a disruptor of a company in the construction space. Construction is very antiquated, pencil, pen, stuff like that. These guys were trying to use technology to erect buildings between a certain storage because they were like, hey, we can use technology and ease the process. And this is where I actually got my first exposure to tech. Prior to that, I was like, yeah, tech's a thing, all good. But man, did I not realize how tech is going to change the world, right? And so I will never forget this too, was my VP of sales at that time, because again, always being in sales, he got breached by a phishing attack. At that time, KO, I had no idea what any of this was. I didn't know what a phishing attack was. I didn't know what a breach was. All I know is we couldn't get into our systems. He's like yelling at everybody. He's trying to type at the computer. He's like, I can't get access. And I'm like, what's going on? And so to fast forward that, because I wasn't there for long, I was there for a year. I just saw the writing on the wall, KO, because it was a disruptor. It was a new tech company. They hired nothing but big VPs, man. Like VP of GE was there. A VP from Coca-Cola was there. They were just bringing like a lot of chiefs, no Indians, you know what I'm saying? I was like, I don't see any growth here. I don't see me doing anything.
Is anyone going to build anything?
Exactly. I was like, all I saw was just cold calling. That's all I was doing, you know?
Okay.
And so, long story short, and that's when I was looking and I reached out to friends and family and was like, hey, you know, I'm just trying to understand what's out there. And I felt like tech was a good look at, because again, I was exposed to tech, and I just writing on the wall of tech is going to be here forever. And I'm glad that I did find tech, because I was blessed to be invited into Cisco at that point. And that's when I was trying to figure out what am I going to do at Cisco? And I don't chase money, because I like to give impact. And where I found myself was cybersecurity, and it just fell on my lap because I was exposed to a breach. I had been in a company that understood what the pain points were, and I was like, when I was going through this program called CSAP, they were like, where do you want? Do you want collaboration? Do you want data center? Do you want security? Blah, blah, blah. I was like, I want security. And then they were like, okay, everybody wants security because it's the hot thing in the market. But I was like, I'm not everybody. I actually have a story that I can understand the pain points of my customer. And that's how I sold myself to become a cybersecurity specialist.
That is huge. Yeah. That is huge. We connected all the dots.
We did connect it.
So one thing I'd love for more people to learn more about is the CSAP program.
Yes.
Can you describe what the process is to get into that program, what it is, and how it changed your career?
Yeah, CSAP has drastically changed. I was actually talking to some CSAPers now, but essentially it's an early in career program at Cisco Systems where they try to funnel kids from college, but now they've extended it from just straight out of college to giving you at least a 3 or 4 year age gap. So you can come from experience, because I was one of those students. I already had experience in the workforce, I already graduated college, but I was a good candidate. So they felt like, okay, that's how I got funneled in, right?
Gotcha.
And so now it's exposed to more of that. But in reality, I would give a lot of kudos to CSAP because they give you the foundation of understanding who Cisco is, the product portfolio, and giving you a good foundation when you come in. Because some of us, especially me, did not have tech background. I wanted to understand, what am I doing? What am I saying? Who is Cisco Systems? So CSAP was a great component of that.
Take you in as someone who has sales experience, a little bit of tech experience through the construction disruptor you're in. And how long is the program?
Now it's a year, but when I was in, we were the first class to become specialists. So we came in off timeline because they usually hired during the July timeframe. We came in February and we had, I believe, like a 8-month roadmap of getting acclimated to Cisco and the product.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So, but now it's a year, by the way.
Okay. Yeah. So in 8 to 12 month time frame, how do they structure that? Is it technical learning for one component, public speaking for another?
Yeah, good question. So it was mostly knowing who Cisco was at the very first onset. And then from there, the technical component of understanding what other products were. Because like I said, we had, as a specialist, we either had to specialize in data center, collaboration, route switch, or security. So in the beginning, they'll give you like the full umbrella, and then once you understand all 4 components, and then you will get selected to one of those trajectories, where in me is cybersecurity, and then you understand that product portfolio. Gotcha. And after you did that for like say 6 months, let's say, you'll get trained a little bit on the sales side of things, selling techniques and stuff like that, just to get you prepped, because some of them were early in college that never got exposed to sales, right? And so we would do that for a little bit, and then you get stretch projects where you can go shadow different personnel.
Gotcha. And the CSAP program has a bunch of really incredible alumni as well, right?
Yes.
And these are alumni who don't just stay at Cisco. Many of them do, but these alumni are now everywhere throughout all of the greater technology realms. So I think if I could have gone back in time and learned about CSAP, I think I would have pursued it.
Absolutely.
But I also don't take for granted the experience that I had working as a technical specialist at NASA, and then finding the right opportunity to jump to Sophos, where I was an MDR and IR consultant. And after that, finding my way to Cisco, I got to meet you. And man, like, what would you say are some of the greatest benefits of joining a company the size of Cisco? Because Cisco has 60, 70,000 employees, depending on the season.
I'm a huge proponent of, helping, as you know. And so this is a question that comes up because I'm like, hey, go look at these companies that give you these training methodologies, because it will expand you. Yes, we should also work for because you could work for like a startup, because I did, right? That tech company was. But when you have, I would say, an organization that already has things lined up, like I'm on XDR, it's kind of like a startup within a huge company. So talking to people on trying to get into CSAP, I would say it would benefit you in so many components of just understanding how a huge machine works. Because you have the legal, you have the procurement, you have the a supply chain, you have so much of these different tracks that you can learn.
I think it's an important distinction that you called out there, that even though Cisco can be a really, really big company that can be straight up overwhelming sometimes, especially when you're new to the system.
Absolutely.
There's disparate business units or functions or teams that might actually operate really, really fast comparatively to the greater machine.
Yep, exactly.
I think one of the ways I've heard people describe Cisco when I first got here is that it can be like a mega yacht.
Yes.
Like it is heading in one direction. We got a whole village up in here.
Yeah.
And it takes a while for us to turn. But when we do, all the resources are pointed in that direction. It starts to feel like cybersecurity just so happens to be one of the directions that Cisco's focused in on now. So in your time at Cisco, how many roles have you had?
Pretty much one, I would say, because I just been a security specialist throughout my tenure. I sold the whole product portfolio for the last 6 years, and the last year and a half now, just specifically XDR.
To young Faizal.
Yes.
On how you could have done your job better at the beginning of your career at Cisco, what would you tell him?
Get more technical. Because it would help me understand the back end a little bit better, so I can talk to an array of my customers, not just the CISOs at a higher level, right? And give them the business case, but also talking to senior managers and even the IT staff, just to get them to understand that I do know what you're dealing with on the constructs of the product, So,
what would you say is the downside of being a non-technical salesperson?
Good question. I would say just being able to relate to some of the tasks that those IT personnel deal with on the day-to-day.
especially if you've never done it yourself.
Yeah, like, and not done it, not understanding the integration and what it takes, the back end of it. But I will say, man, I jump on those post-sale calls, those technical calls, and I've been lost, but I try to learn as much as I can and listen. So that's something that I've done thanks to some of the better engineers that I've had throughout my lifestyle, right? At Cisco, they're like, go get on those calls. Don't just be a regular sales guy, you know? So I get on those calls and listen. And I will be honest, it sometimes takes me into a tangent and I'm like, I have no idea what they're talking about, but I try to just keep up with it, you know?
Yeah. You know, some good advice I've heard before is not to major in the minors. And sometimes what that might look like is when you're a salesperson, like, do you want to really focus and hone in on your ability to sell and your ability to influence people? And if you are a TSA or solutions architect, should you really hone in on your skill set of being as technical as you possibly can? Like, what is your approach to each of those roles? Because they are married really close. What is your approach to having both of those people in their individual personas sort of find their own lane while still working productively together?
Best friends. Better become best friends.
Ideally.
Because you also want to understand what their scope and limitations are, and they need to know yours as well, right? And so I'm huge on trying to understand where he or she would like to be at, so I don't make them uncomfortable in a conversation. Because sometimes they don't want to talk the business side of things or even talk about the pricing. Yeah. And if you don't know that, how are you going to jump in and not help them out, right? And so vice versa in that aspect. But I would plainly say become best friends with your counterpart just to understand. So you get their six, man. You got to have their six.
Yeah, that's important. When you're working in a role like that, where you are as heavily entangled as you are, like salesperson and technical counterpart, SE, sales engineer, you work with that person, spend more time with that person than probably anybody else on the planet.
Absolutely.
What would you say are some big mistakes that most salespeople make when they are learning how to work with their sales engineer or technical counterpart?
The biggest one that just pops out, like alerts in my head right now when you said that, is not understanding what the customer's needs are and what they have in their environment. How are we going to put this solution that we're proposing together because we don't know the back-end information, right? I try to be proactive, go find out what the install base is, what they have, what their wants are, so I can have a better conversation with my engineer to have them be ready to, you know.
Yeah, I mean, it's a bond, it's a pairing. What would you say are some of the greatest qualities of the most successful salespeople you've ever met, whether that be in cybersecurity or elsewhere?
Be proactive and do more than your job responsibility says, man. It's just something that I innately believe in. Like, just don't just do your scope of work.
Yeah, from my perspective, salespeople have the craziest jobs because there's the relationship aspect, there's the technical aspect of understanding how to dissect the relationships. There's also the administrative aspect of it. There's the work hours. You're probably working upwards of 60, 80 hours a week. Oftentimes, you're on call 24/7. And salespeople, I think, sometimes don't have the luxury of, as for SEs, where SEs can maybe feel like they've got a little bit better work-life balance. That work-life balance sometimes is afforded because your salesperson is busting their ass off. So what advice would you give to SEs if you were able to speak on behalf of salespeople?
Just be mindful of what our workload is. Man, I would stutter at that because honestly, you know, I also try to understand that the SEs also have a huge undertaking. It all falls on their laps as well. So I try to understand that and try to take more of the brunt in that aspect because I need to protect them. They need to be the subject matter expert. And so do I, right? Absolutely. I'm not just any fish in any pond just trying to sell you something. I want to understand your needs and wants and give you the right solution. So biggest thing is I would say is just, you know, get them to be a little bit mindful that we also have a huge undertaking.
Yeah. So for you to step up your own body of knowledge and become more technical, what are some resources that you're leveraging? How do you set aside time out of your already ridiculous schedule to study?
Yeah.
And what does that look like?
Definitely taking time to carve out to study and understand the industry. Like something that we all can do immediately is just reading a blog and understanding what's going on in the current day. Just trying to correlate that to your customer.
What would you say are some of your favorite resources to keep yourself up to speed on what's going on in cybersecurity? 2
is just Google, like, you know, obviously going through articles and stuff like that and Cisco internal resources. But my best friend is YouTube, man.
YouTube?
Yeah.
Man, everything we need to learn.
It's on YouTube.
It's available.
There's a lot of great engineers. Like I was just understanding this engineer talking about how Splunk and XDR can help each other. I'm not going to get the person's name, but he had a YouTube stint of talking about here's Splunk, here's XDR. This is where this fits in the customer segment and stuff like that. And so I learned a lot from that.
Absolutely. The next question I have is, what's the craziest story you've heard from the industry? Or your favorite? So for me, example, it would be like the Stuxnet worm. Have you heard about the Stuxnet worm?
A little bit.
It's crazy, man. They had this one exploit that chained together 7 0 days. So each one of these 0 days could have been worth millions of dollars. These were lines of code that had never been identified in the wild, and someone had just been hoarding them. And they found a way to string together these exploits in just the right way. And by they, people may speculate who they may be.
Yeah.
And it ends up shutting down a nuclear refinement facility.
Yeah, in Iran. Yes, yeah. And how they got in. Now, yes.
Crazy. They're dropping USBs everywhere.
Yeah.
So that's actually what got me into cybersecururity. I heard that and I was like, I need to be doing that. Whatever that is, I need to get there. And that ended my Chipotle run. I might still be wrapping burritos if I hadn't seen that someday.
Yo, that is actually, bro, that blew my mind on how they did, and they increased the temperature of the nuclear reactors. Blew my mind. Similarly, talking about what you would say it blew my mind was the exploit that they got into Vegas using the fish tank. You remember this one?
A fish tank?
Yeah, they got into the sensor of the fish tank. Okay?
What?
Yeah. If I'm not mistaken, we could Google this, but I'm definitely sure from recollection, somehow, some way, they were trying to get into the network. They saw that the fish tank had a sensor, an IoT sensor that they got into, and they got into the network that way, man. That blew my mind.
That's tough. You never would expect it to be the fish tank sensor. You can't trust no one nowadays.
You cannot, man. Not even the damn fish. Not even the damn fish.
Right on. Oh my goodness. So those two are some of the top two ones. I would love to hear, like, what does it look like to live a day in the life of Faizal?
Okay.
Personally, professionally, because some people may have no idea what it's like to either be a salesperson or even just to be in your shoes.
Yeah. Amazing. Well, on a good day, we get up, we go for a run, we get energized, get into my work mode and crush the day. But essentially, it starts the night before, to be honest, KO, right? I try to get prepped by looking at my calendar. What's for next day? Is it a call? Is it just internal calls? Get everything prepped up. So on those good days, go to the gym, get a run in, come in, and then plan that day out because I already know what's happening. So it's going to be easy for me. And on a bad day, might have missed the night before looking at what's up, might have missed the gym. So I'm kind of scrambling on getting up earlier just to see what the day looks like, right? But typical day, man, is either customer calls or internal meetings and trying to progress those opportunities to the next level.
Try to get that PO, whatever it takes, whatever it takes. So what would you say are some of the habits that have been instrumental to your growth and progression as a cybersecurity professional?
Absolutely. Getting that discipline in early on from reading blogs, looking at my calendars, understanding my customers' environment, doing homework on them, Googling them, seeing what they have seen, if they've been breached. Any information, any tidbit on my customer is vital to me because I try to formulate my conversation around them and not just blatantly paint anything.
Huge call. One thing people hate about salespeople is when they do what's called showing up and throwing up. I think the most effective way to sell is to take a consultative approach.
Yep.
What approach do you typically like to take?
Love the consultative approach. And I also try to level set and tell them like there are other vendors that are great out there. 100%. Cisco is great, but there's also other vendors in the cybersecurity space that are really good. So I try to level set and tell them I understand that, hey, I'm going to propose this company and this is why. And then also let them know that there are other companies that are good. But then when it comes down to the nitty gritties, the solutions are all going to be A grade, but it's those small things. Who's the point of contact that you have? How easy is it to be integrated? And those things I try to point out so they understand it's not just buying solution. You're buying more than just the solution. Now you got the team behind them.
Yeah, that's huge. And I like how you called out how there are other people doing what I'm offering you that do it well. Because there's a level of authenticity that strikes me with that. That reminds me that you're probably someone I might want to do business with just off of the intention of being honest. And it's hard to find people who are honest in sales sometimes. And that's, I think, is a deep, inner anxiety that everybody has whenever they engage with salespeople is, I have the stereotype of a snake oil salesman in my head or a used car salesman who's trying to pressure me into doing something I don't want to do. Are you that? So there's a level of like personal magnetism that you need to have, integrity, relationship building, in order for you to even have that influence.
And one of my biggest things to add, KO, when I talk to a customer, I'm like, listen, I want to understand your environment to see if this solution is the right fit for you, because it might not be. As much as I want to sell this to you, if it's not a good fit for you, I am not going to give it to you. Like, I personally believe that. And it takes me back to the days of my first job in the clothing industry, because I hated D-books, essentially, like when people brought back clothes because they didn't want it. If I forced it upon them and they never wanted, they're going to go home and say, hey, this was something I never wanted. I'm giving it back to you. That still relates to me in a way that a D-book is, right? And where they say, hey, we didn't even want to use this anyway. So I really try to understand, like, hey, is this product or solution really needed in your environment? If it is, then they're going to always use it.
It's good to know that we've got some ethical sales.
I try to be, man. Try to be.
We love that, because that's what's going to sustain long-term partnership.
Yeah, exactly.
And in cybersecurity, it's all about trust.
Because it might not be right now, but it's going to be sometime down the line. So hopefully they can keep me in mind, you know?
Yeah. Reminds me of one of my favorite quotes. It takes 20 years to build a reputation. A minute to lose it. A minute to lose it. All right. So I'd love to hear, Faizal, what is something you're excited about? What is something you're proud of? What is something you're grateful for? Something along those lines, and also something you're excited for.
I'm excited, one, and truly, is to get to know KO a little bit better, because I know we met briefly in the past, but now after this, we get to really get to know each other on a deeper level. So that excites me. But the most exciting thing, KO, man, is I like to serve. Like, you know, that's something that's I feel like innate in me, like helping whoever I can out. That just gets me excited. I have a couple of mentees that are like asking about, hey, what's next steps in life? And I love to give them my perspective. I'm just one data point. If I can give them as many data points, so I either like introducing them to you or whoever else, I feel like I've done my job.
And I'd love to help them. I mean that.
Amazing.
Right on.
Thank you.
Yeah, I've got over 30 mentees that I've helped in different scopes.
Amazing.
I've got a couple of them who went from making like minimum wage to well over 200K.
Exactly.
And when I look back on my life,
that excites me, man.
The things that I'm most proud of, the things that light me up the most, are when I get to help somebody.
Yes.
And I know nowadays I may not necessarily have all the time that I used to before, but I definitely see myself in some capacity doing some level of teaching. Because what's the point of like hoarding all this knowledge?
Exactly.
When the next generation needs it.
100%.
They're going to take this design, they're going to improve upon it, and then seeing that gratitude and seeing that growth, and then seeing them generationally passing on the same knowledge, man, unbeatable.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, Faizal, it has been an absolute pleasure, my man. I'm like, I was fired up. I was sad. I was juiced. Like, I felt all the emotions in this one, and amazing. I hope that other people do too. We have a tradition here on KO's Corner podcast where we close every episode with a dap. You know, you know what a dap is? So this is a dab. This is a dap. Oh,
that was a good one. That was a good
first try.
Thanks for tuning in to KO's Launchpad, where cybersecurity meets opportunity. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with others on their cybersecurity journey. Stay curious and keep charting your course to success. Until next time.